Welcome in, everyone, to my New York Giants 6th round mock draft 3.0, aka the final post free agency edition. And we call it that because that's exactly what it is. I was supposed to get this out actually earlier than it is coming out, but time constraints, guys. But this draft right here is going to be the last one I make this year for the 2021 NFL draft. Obviously, this one I hope to be the one that is most accurate, but I could be completely off. The reason I say that is because free agency already happened, and the Giants addressed a lot of their needs in free agency, surprising a lot of people, their fans included, with how many players they got, the level of talent to those players that they got, and the amount of positions that they addressed. The New York Giants technically addressed every single position in free agency, whether they got a star player like Kenny Galladay for wide receiver or a role player like Reggie Ragland for the linebacking spot. But I just want to put out a little bit of a disclaimer. Since this is my final one that I'm making this year, I took a little bit of liberties and I kind of made some players drop just because I wanted them real bad. It's not terrible though. You'll see what I mean. And well, with all that being said, how about we just get right into it? With the 11th pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the New York Football Giants select Rashawn Slater, tackle, Northwestern. Yeah, so right off the bat, like I said, I did make a couple players slip a little bit. I really meant one player, and that was Rashawn Slater, because I'm going to put it right out there. It's something I've said for a couple of months now. This man is not making it to pick 11. I really don't see how he's making it to pick 11. I guess I should correct myself. The probability and the chance of him slipping to 11 is very slim, but it's not impossible. I'm really banking on the not impossible part right now and hoping that he makes it to the Giants. Why, do you ask, do I think he's not making it to us? Because he's a premium offensive tackle in this draft, and premium offensive tackles are always in high demand, even in the NFL as free agents. Right now, it's him and it's Penei Sewell at the top. Sewell is going to go somewhere around 4, 5, or 6. And if Sewell does go around there, Rashawn Slater is expected to go right there at 8 to the Carolina Panthers, who are in the market for a tackle, or even at 10. Don't be surprised if he somehow slips past them and he goes to Dallas. They could use somebody right there to help fix up their offensive line, but enough about that. There is a chance he slips past all of them and gets to 11 to the New York Giants, and now that's where we are. Standing at 6'4", 304 pounds, the senior offensive tackle out of Northwestern is somebody that got a lot of attention for shutting down one Chase Young back when they battled out in college, but also because of his great technique, great natural talent, and a little bit because of his great strength, which he showed off at his pro day, that he's been steadily rising through the ranks of not just offensive tackles, because, well, to be honest with you, he's always been right there, that number 2 spot. People have even, has gone as far to put him as the number 1 tackle in the class, if you were to believe some of these NFL rumors that say they have Slater ranked as number 1 tackle. But he's been rising through to all NFL prospects as one of the best guys you could get in this year's class. I mentioned his show off of the strength. Let's talk about one thing right now, that's his arms. A lot of people don't really like that his arms aren't the longest in the world, but guess what? His arm placement and technique with his arm placement is some of the best that you're gonna see when you look at any college player out there. Even maybe if you look at some NFL guys, maybe I'm taking a little bit of a stretch there, but this man knows where and when and how to place his arms into the chest of an opposing edge rusher coming at him. He's really good at finding and getting a grip against those guys and creating his own leverage, despite the fact that what some might describe as just good enough arm length. He uses it extremely well. He uses it as some of the top levels that you're gonna see. I mean, I mentioned his famous battle with Young earlier. A lot of that had to do with the fact that he just beat him on arm placement, getting inside and having a grip on him, directing the body of the edge rusher by keeping balance at the point of the chest right there with Rashawn Slater in his arms. And of course, you can't do any of that unless you have good feet. He has nice quick feet, sometimes even nice light feet. There are times where he's beaten. He's not a perfect prospect. He was taken advantage a couple times on the inside, but at the same time, he's so athletic and fast that his recovery just kind of covered up the reps that he lost against any pass rusher, really. But his feet, they are set great. They have not much room for improvement in my opinion. They're gonna be ready to go day one as an NFL offensive tackle. He gets into the second level because of his athleticism. He's gonna be really good in the run game for somebody like Saquon Barkley. Kind of reminds me of when I looked at Andrew Thomas last year, and one of the things I loved about Thomas was that he could get into the second level in the run game as well. You could count on that for Slater. And I'm not going to say put him at guard, draft Rashawn Slater and put him at guard. Now talking specifically his fit with the Giants. I am going to say draft him, see where he fits best on the line in which particular lineup, and you're going to put him there because he deserves a fair shot at right tackle. If he earns it, he earns it. If they say the best lineup is him at guard with Pear at tackle, then they say that's what it is. But this man could play either position just as good. With the 42nd pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the New York Giants select Elijah Moore, wide receiver, Ole Miss. Now, before I get into anything too specific, I want to let you all know I heavily considered having Kadarius Toney drop to the second round here to the Giants. A lot of it had to do with the fact that I've been seeing him drop across mock drafts all over the place, not just the ones you'd see on NFL.com or you'd see on websites like PFN and Draft Network and whatnot, but even when I've been doing mock drafts, I've found myself unconsciously not drafting Toney in the first round. I don't necessarily think that's an actually, a realistic representation of what's going to happen in real life, because Toney should be taken in the first round. But I do want to say I almost did that for this. But Elijah Moore is 100% a way more realistic pick here at 42. And I will say this. When I look at Elijah Moore, for some reason, I can just see him being a Giant. He just looks like a Giant wide receiver to me. And what I mean by that is he's somebody that does his damage in the slot. He's most efficient as a slot wide receiver. That's where you're going to get the most of his talents out of currently, but he still can play on the outside. He still will be effective on the outside, kind of like Sterling Shepard that we currently have. And whenever I think of Elijah Moore, that is something that immediately comes to mind for me. Down the line, if this is somebody we actually draft, he's going to come in and he's going to be the one to replace Sterling Shepard. Standing at 5'10 and 180 pounds, he's somebody that's really elusive, extremely agile, and has great speed to his game. Once again, it's really more so you notice it once he's in the slot, but once he gets into the open field, specifically in the middle of the field, and if he has the ball in his hands, he's really hard to run down and catch. And other teams know about his speed as well, because Ole Miss frequently uses this man as a decoy when out there on the field. When you look at him and you go to look for his film or highlights or whatever, well, specifically film, you're going to find yourself staring at a lot of decoy plays a lot of the times. He's just there to draw of the other team's cornerbacks, or there to draw attention to himself, and he's in the backfield quite a bit too. He makes plays in the backfield. He's taken a lot of receptions behind the line of scrimmage, and whether it's on a wide receiver screen or an end around or something of the sort, once again similar to Shepard, and that's where he's made a lot of his plays. He will also kill you on a slant route and a sluggo route, from what I've noticed. The dude, that's by far his best. A lot of his big plays down the field, for example, came on a sluggo route or some variant of that. And whenever he's lined up outside, it's like Ole Miss loves giving him the slant. Despite his smaller size, he's great in traffic and a lot of times comes down with the ball in traffic. One thing I've noticed as well is that he's played a good amount of times without gloves. So when this guy catches the ball, and he's made some really good catches against Alabama, for example, when the pass rushers got to Ole Miss's quarterback, unfortunately I don't know his name, he threw it like basically across the field, down the field to Moore, who had to reach down for the ball because it was underthrown at that point because of the pressure. He kept his balance and he caught the ball, without gloves, which is not something you see that much in today's, football world. And he came down with what was basically an off-target throw and made a play out of it. And also, in addition to his small size, he has shown toughness before. He does shy away from it in the run game, which I don't necessarily like. I would like for him, no matter what team he goes to improve in his blocking and become a bit more, not necessarily excited, but just participate in blocking more for your running backs, because that's something that's definitely going to be needed when he comes to the Giants. With the 76th pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the New York Giants select Chaz Surratt, linebacker, UNC. So yeah, I recognize Chaz is who I had us taking in the second round in my last mock draft, but I did put a disclaimer there saying he could be found in the second or the third. It really depends on how the draft board falls, so it's not unrealistic that he's there. And I mean, I really still think the same things of him, so I'm gonna just roll that clip. This guy originally went to UNC to become a quarterback from them during his first 2 years there, but then switched to linebacker his junior year, and the results was astounding. In that 2019 season, he had 115 total tackles, 66 solo with 6.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble with the fumble recovery, and an interception. As a player in his first year in that position, that is unheard of. And I already like players, I really do like players that were once quarterbacks and then switched to the defensive side of the ball, because it's almost like they have an inside look as to how quarterbacks in general thinks. And you can see this on the field with Chaz Surratt sometimes, man. The dude is an extremely instinctual player. At times, so much so that he just looks like he's thinking at another level compared to his teammates and compared to his fellow linebackers for sure. It's what's led to him being one of the better linebackers in this year's draft at diagnosing things like screens and making the correct decisions in zone coverage, you know, knowing which weapon, which wide receiver, which tight end to go and cover. The football IQ is 100% there. I mean, it has to be there for you to at one point be a quarterback. Switching over to basically what is the quarterback of the defense, it just shows really well, and that's not even his best trait. The thing that a lot of people know about Chaz Surratt is that he's insanely athletic and he plays really fast on the field too. And with those two traits, there's almost a third one that he has that not many players that are really great athletes have, and that's playing with a sense of urgency, and Chaz Surratt does have that. His burst, his twitchiness, he's very fluid in his hips, the side-to-side range, it's led to him just being an all-around explosive player, and this is what's led to him being a really good pass defender as well, with a great ability to break on the ball and close out gaps. Now, it doesn't always work because when you're playing at 110%, sometimes he overshoots, sometimes he oversells. You know, it can come as a knock that, you know, he's just too aggressive on the field, but it works out more often than not, and it's a very fixable mistake. It's not even that big of a problem. Oh yeah, and by the way, this guy can 100% cover tight ends, so you don't have to worry about that either. And just because he's good in the pass doesn't mean he's not good in the run. He's effective in the run game as well. The range certainly comes in hands with dealing with running backs, and he's really good at getting down to the line of scrimmage and closing off any running lanes. Now, some people may look at his 2020 season where he posted 91 total tackles, 49 solo, 6 sacks, 1 fumble with the recovery, and another interception as kind of a step down, even though for the most part he posted the similar stats in less games. But that was because they shifted him to more of a leader of the defensive side of the ball, where he was actually like the Mike linebacker. And while he was good at that, he's certainly best at just being on his own and just relying on his instincts to do his job. And since we already have our Mike guy in Blake, well, Chaz just slides right in. With the 999th pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Hub selects Manscaped, Lawnmower 3.0, and Perfect Package 3.0. Alright guys, so as you well know, support for the Hub and for this video is brought to you by Manscaped, the best in men's below the waist grooming. Manscaped.com offers precision engineered tools to take care of your family jewels. This is going to be a good pickup because they obsess over their technological developments to provide you with the best grooming experience. It is going to be unmatched compared to any other pick in this draft right here. Manscaped is trusted by over 2 million men worldwide, and they got an exclusive offer for you guys, for my listeners, 20% off and free shipping with the code HUB, HUB at manscaped.com. Already coming in clutch, and they're not even seeing the field yet. Manscaped. With the 116th pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the New York Giants select Patrick Jones II, edge rusher, Pittsburgh. Now, usually the edge rusher I select is right here in the 4th round, and it would be Ronnie Perkins, which is, you know, the guy I've had going to the Giants in my first 2 mock drafts. But since I did those, Perkins has risen up draft boards. He's probably going to go somewhere in the early 3rd, mid-3rd round now. So I had to go and look for someone else, another reliable guy that I could think would be here. And that's where 6'4.5", 264-pound edge rusher Patrick Jones comes in. He's a guy that's worked his way up at Pittsburgh He began with just a rotational pass rushing role, and then he made his way up to the starters. In his last 2 years, he was such a trusted guy right there next to, of course, another edge rusher in this year's class, Rashad Weaver. But he made first team All-ACC in 2020, and he was second team All-ACC in 2019. His last 2 years at Pitt totaled 17.5 sacks, 24 tackles for loss in just 22 games. And this is somebody that has a lot of potential, but also, you know, with room for improvement. That's why he's in the 4th. One thing I really like about Patrick is that he's very quick off the ball, and he always has a good first step. But a lot of things you notice is that he's either always too late to get to the QB despite his quickness, or sometimes he beats himself against, you know, opposing offensive linemen. Patrick is really good at ripping and dipping around the edge against offensive tackles. Sometimes he could get the better of most of the guys he goes up against as long as he's swinging around the outside. But with the rip and dip, sometimes his hips are so stiff and he doesn't bend properly that he literally trips up on his own 2 feet. It's happened before, where it's literally a situation of he's just not flexible enough, or he's just not being flexible enough to match the speed that he wants to go at, and so the body isn't doing what he wants it to, even though he definitely has the potential to do it, because even, you know, despite those problems, the guy still has produced. For example, in his last year in 2020, while he got most of his sacks in, you know, I want to say 4 or 5 games, he was still a consistent threat off the edge and consistently getting pressure off the edge, and that's what makes him have, in many people's eyes, a really nice ceiling over here. For example, sometimes he would trip up because of his flexibility issues, but then he has the football IQ and he processes everything on the field so quickly that he recovers, and because of his athleticism, he still gets really close to the QB, yet just so far. So it only makes you think, if he didn't slip up in the first place, if he could learn to get a bit more control, how many more times would he have gotten to the QB? How many more sacks and pressures could he have racked up? And athleticism is really the name of the game for Patrick, in my opinion. His frame is something I really like, and he could put out a lot of power, because it's kind of misleading, the build that he has to what he actually does in the power rushing game. He needs to improve on that a bit. If there's anybody that could do it, I think Coach Chaos can. And while he played 4-3 defensive end at Pittsburgh, I think he would have no problem shifting over to a 3-4 outside linebacker. That's just my opinion. I think that he is athletic enough to do it, and I would be very willing to take a shot at him in the 4th. With the 196th pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the New York Giants select Elijah Mitchell, running back, Louisiana. And for those of you that watch my live streams, particularly the mock draft live streams that I've done throughout this offseason, you know I already like Elijah Mitchell, and I like him mostly because I think he is exactly what we need and exactly what the Giants are looking for in a backup running back. Now, of course, the New York Giants did sign Devontae Booker in the offseason to fulfill that backup running back role, and as of right now, it looks like Wayne Gallman isn't going to be back. So the question of whether or not we're going to draft the running back isn't as easily answered as it once was. I mean, with Booker there, and I do think Booker is going to be a great backup running back, there's not as much of a need for one as there was before the signing. Nevertheless, I do think Mitchell, or any running back that we take around the 6th round for that matter, is going to be somebody that would be on the team longer than a Devontae Booker, primarily because Booker is going to be looking for another team after his stint with the Giants. But to get on Elijah Mitchell, the guy is a raging Cajun that shared his snaps throughout his career with 2 other running backs, Trey Ragas and Raymond Calais, and despite sharing that workload, the offense of the Raging Cajuns, which was ran by one Rob Sale, the current offensive line coach of the New York Giants, which is another reason I like Mitchell. There's a connection there, but that Raging Cajun offense was primarily a run offense. That's why they were rotating 3 guys. And in his junior year, Elijah was the leading rusher of those guys. That was back in 2019 when he had 198 rushing attempts, 1,147 yards, 17 touchdowns, 10 receptions, 70 yards. Now, 4 receptions, though, don't take these 2019 years and say, well, he can't be, a holistic running back. He can't catch out the backfield. He proved that in the year before, where he had 20 receptions for 350 yards. He's a tough down the field runner, man. He got good short burst quickness. He always keeps his feet moving, and it's really hard to bring him down. I'm not going to say he's Saquon now, but it is really hard to bring him down. He is better when running up the middle, it seems, than when going outside, because it doesn't seem like he quite have the speed to turn that corner quick enough. But there are a couple plays where he makes that turn and he's off to the races. One thing I do want to say about Mitchell before I leave him be is that he weighed in at his pro day at 201, but he weighed in at the Senior Bowl at 215. I'm going to roll with 215 because the Senior Bowl was right after the regular season, and I'm guessing that's where he's going to get back to play in the NFL. With the 201st pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the New York Giants select Greg Island, offensive guard, Mississippi State. And now real quick, once you get to the last pick of the Giants, pick 201, round 6, I mean, at this point, I'm just looking to find a really good depth player to fill out this roster. And at this point in the draft, at this point in the offseason, what it would be, you know, in the future, the Giants are kind of stacked quantity-wise at every position. We have a bunch of corners, we have a bunch of linebackers, bunch of defensive linemen. That's probably the most stacked one. A good amount of wide receivers. The running back core, now with the addition of the last pick, is also going to be a little bit stacked. Tight ends, we got 4 of them. Really is just the offensive line that could use a little bit more depth to it, and that's where this absolute behemoth of a man, 6'8", 335 pounds, Greg Island, comes in, and that's really the name of his game. He was somebody that at his time in Mississippi State started at left tackle, right tackle, and left guard for his offensive line. So the guy has experience at basically everywhere on the line except center, making him the perfect candidate for a depth player on the offensive line. He's an absolute bulldozer, and he's a very, very aggressive mauler on the offensive line. An archetype that the Giants seem to love taking, and him in terms of attitude and size is going to be something that the coaching staff and Gettleman are going to love. There's very few guys built like him in the NFL, and he definitely is going to need improvement on the technical aspects of things, because once again, this is the 6th round. He's definitely going to need to be coached well when it comes to his foot movement and hand placement, but his power is going to get him a long way. Not all the way. I mean, it's been good enough for him to actually handle some double teams in college and even be able to handle a couple of kick-out blocks, but once again, you know, good depth, good backup for the Giants. And that concludes my mock draft 3.0, the final one I'll be doing this year for the Giants, full 6-round mock draft. It's probably the longest one that I've done this year, and it's all thanks to you guys that I was able to do it, and you know, had the motivation to put so much work into it to make it look so good for you guys and do the research. This would not be possible at all without the audience, without you, the subscribers helping me out, and of course the members who deserve a huge shout out. You know, they go one step above and beyond to support me. I really appreciate it. It would not have been possible without y'all, and you guys are the reason I make these videos. But yeah, that was the 3rd one, man. Definitely different from the other 2 that I've done. I think all 3 in general are from each other, so you guys let me know which one was the best. And of course, I gotta give a shout out to my guy Farhan, my friend, who helps me make these mock draft videos and helps, you know, get the animations and stuff done for all y'all. But that's it for now. Put your thoughts down below, and I'm out.